in the market for a new car and you're looking to buy something made within the last 10 years for the very first time, you might be surprised to know that an inordinate number of new vehicles, including internal combustion engine models, now come with some form of telematics system. Depending on the make and the model of car you're looking at and the price of said vehicle, they might be capable of doing everything from keeping track of where your car is in real time, a useful function no doubt if you have teenagers who regularly borrow your car, through to remote locking, unlocking and preconditioning. If you're looking to buy a new EV, or again, one made within the last decade, there's almost a 100% chance that the vehicle you're looking at left the factory with some form of onboard modem designed to facilitate telematics. Some, like Tesla's made after 2012, will even have the ability to offer you a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot so that you can offer passengers complimentary Wi-Fi while you drive along. And these features, along with the ability to remotely interrogate your car's state of charge and predicted range, start and stop charging sessions, get over-the-air software updates, and keep track of your car's battery pack health, are often used by EV enthusiasts as one of the key killer features of buying an EV with telematics enabled. I've personally espoused the benefits of telematics multiple times on this channel, and I'm someone who uses telematics to the fullest to allow me to integrate the remote telematics capabilities of both our Chevrolet Bolt EV and Ford F-150 Lightning into our own home automation system. But in a world where data breaches happen with shocking regularity, where having anything connected to the internet puts it at risk of becoming attacked, and where data overload is a real thing, we have to ask, do you really need telematics for your EV? Let's find out. Okay, so this video might at first seem to be a pretty easy video, and the answer to the question, do you really need telematics in your EV, is one that I'm guessing most of you already have a yes or no answer firmly set on in your head. But the goal of this video isn't necessarily to try and change your mindset from whatever position you already have. The obvious answer, of course, being that nobody really needs telematics in order to have a functional vehicle. No, instead, I'm hoping that we can discuss some of the pros and cons of telematics, of which there are many. In preparing this video, I sat down and examined my own relationship with onboard telematics. And while I have used remote telematics in the majority of EVs made after 2010 that I've owned, I've been driving EVs since 2006, and many of my EVs were built before telematics even existed. My City L, my Volkswagen Golf City Stroma, my Riva, or G-Wiz, as well as my DIY homemade plug-in Prius offered nothing in the way of telematics. My Vectrex VX1 doesn't have it, nor did my two Renault Twizzys, although I will be honest, I did add it to those vehicles later thanks to the OVMS project. My Toyota RAV4 EV also didn't have telematics, although it did have an onboard timer function for climate control that allowed me to carry out the same preconditioning behaviour with it that I've enjoyed for the majority of my telematics-enabled EVs. Because of all of that, I think I've probably got a little more experience with telematics than most. So if you're looking at a used older EV that either doesn't have telematics because it never came with it from the factory, or perhaps has lost its telematics capabilities due to changes in the cellular modem network since it rolled off the production line, don't fret. Although I'll come to some ways around that later in the video. That said, if you are looking at a new EV and you're new to EVs, you really should consider trying out telematics to begin with, especially as many automakers offer it as a free service for the first few months or years of ownership. Which brings me to the positives, the benefits of having telematics. And at the top of the list is knowing what the car is doing when it comes to charging and its state of charge. If you live somewhere with your own dedicated parking and charging space, and that charging is rock solid reliable, then this is probably less of a worry than if you are relying on public charging for the majority of your vehicle's motive power. But either way, knowing how full your car's battery pack is at any given time using telematics is a major bonus. Not only does it mean that you can build confidence that your car has the range you expect when you finally get behind the wheel, but it also is a great way of telling if someone has either maliciously or accidentally unplugged your vehicle while it's charging. Back in the early days of my Nissan Leaf ownership in the UK, I remember receiving multiple messages from car wings when road tripping somewhere telling me that some insert a derogatory word of your choice had decided to hit the emergency stop button for a laugh on a rapid charger, or had decided to unplug my car from a level 2 charging station. It not only meant that I was able to rectify the problem and get back on the road very quickly, but it also meant that I was able to pinpoint reasonably accurately when someone decided to maliciously screw with my car. In a similar vein, telematics also meant that I was able to identify at what point I needed to return to my car and resume my trip, meaning that I could go and sit in a nice coffee shop at a rest stop rather than stay in my car and wait. Expanding that forward, more modern vehicles with remote locking and unlocking have also allowed me to let friends or teenage children go back to the car and retrieve things they left behind without handing over physical keys. And while that last functionality is certainly not a requirement, it's something I've very much enjoyed being able to do. Telematics packages from different automakers offer different things, and exactly what's included, usually battery state of charge monitoring and preconditioning at the bare minimum, although some automakers even charge for that, varies from automaker to automaker. But outside of the day-to-day charge monitoring and preconditioning, one of the features I really value is the ability to keep an eye on battery pack and vehicle health. Most automakers, if you let them, offer the chance to send you messages if there's something awry with your car, such as a flat tyre or a battery pack that requires urgent service. Given how many times in the last few years we've heard of battery failures and recalls, knowing ahead of time that there's something wrong is a very useful feature. Tesla and some other automakers have actually used remote telematics to identify problems with customers' cars long before they become critical problems. I've met people who have received phone calls or emails from their car's respective automakers going, "Yeah, could you bring your car in for service now?" long before the driver themselves was even aware that there was an issue. And what's more, when there is an issue with a vehicle that requires the owner to call a dealership or service centre, telematics can be used to allow technicians the chance to remotely diagnose problems without the car being present, or at least pull off error codes to allow them to prepare for an eventual service visit far more effectively. Then there's the ability to track your car if you so wish and know where it is. And I'm not going to lie here, I've actually used telematics in the past to make sure my significant other is safe and well when they're away from home, or maybe struggling to make it to the next charging station. And I've also used it to help locate my Chevrolet Bolt that was quote-unquote borrowed by one of my children, who didn't have a driving licence at the time, or without my permission or knowledge. OTA? Over-the-air updates? Well, they are the icing on the cake, allowing you to receive software updates that improve the functionality of your vehicle, fix bugs, and add new features without you ever having to take time off work to head to the dealership or the service centre. OTA updates delivered via the same modem that provides telematics has expanded the capabilities of my Ford F-150 Lightning a lot since the very first models started rolling off the production line 2 years ago. But before you think this is a love letter from yours truly to telematics, think again. Because while telematics can offer a bunch of features that can enhance the ownership experience, there are definitely some downsides. Mostly they relate to your data and expose your vehicle to the internet. The first, and hopefully obvious one, is that your vehicle's telematics is only as secure as the weakest link in the telematics chain. Every time your vehicle data crosses over the inner tubes, there's a potential point of attack. And because telematics systems usually send data from a vehicle to an automaker's data center, then pass that back-end data to a different data center focused on the smartphone app you use to interact with your vehicle before then sending that to your phone, there are many potential points of attack. And look, nobody wants a flat inner tube. I know the word is internet, but while writing this script late in a very busy week, my inner alter ego, who happens to be a time-travelling immortal steampunk border collie who doesn't understand the modern world, very clearly sat on my shoulder and insisted that I used the phrase inner tubes. And this one time, I let her have her way. It's been a sucky week, so just let me have that little bit of escapism, eh? Of course, all of these attack vectors are carefully monitored and checked by respective automakers and data partners involved in providing your car's telematics. And vulnerabilities do get exposed and exploited and ultimately patched. Databases can get attacked and intrusion does happen. But the sad reality of any interconnected system like this is that it's only as secure as you choose to make it. And if you happen to have a super secure system that's very difficult to gain entry to, but you, the end user, is using your regular email address and password as the password, then in the dramatized words of Jim Lovell, Houston, we have a problem. Before you get the pitchforks out, I know Lovell actually said, "Okay, Houston, we've had a problem." But the version scripted and attributed to Lovell in the film Apollo 13 was a little more appropriate in this context. I regularly meet people who are concerned about the safety element of a telematics system, often because of potential security breaches. And yes, there have been some pretty heinous oopsies from car telematics. Back in the early days of the Nissan Leaf, I seem to recall it was possible to query the server for a vehicle's location using its VIN number, even if you weren't the actual owner of said vehicle. That was quickly patched, and there are plenty of similar stories of a similar ilk over the last decade or so. But if you pick a secure, unique password that you regularly change, and like anything else you do online, be it social media, managing your retirement account, or watching the latest blockbuster video on your streaming platform of choice, you should be far more secure than you would be if you were using the same password for everything. And as we've said time and time again, if you haven't considered getting a password manager, it's high time you do. That and, of course, enabling two-factor authentication methods where offered. And using a different email address for super sensitive and very critical things that you do not want to suffer cross-contamination from in the event of a security breach is also a smart move. If you use the same email address for your bank account as you do for your car's telematics, it takes a lot less energy for a nefarious ne'er-do-weller to connect that account to your bank account. If they know that account A belongs to the same person that account B belongs to, and it might have the same password, you're in trouble. Following well-trodden security advice and keeping everything updated will help minimize the risk that your personal data will be leaked or compromised, or that your telematics system will be breached. But if this still concerns you, then I'm going to be honest, it's probably best that you don't use telematics. Most modern EVs do have climate controllers that allow you to set in-vehicle timers for when you'd like the car to be ready, and a similar onboard timer usually exists for charging. And as I said earlier on in this video, there's no requirement that you use telematics in order to use your EV. It's your car and your choice. You may also, though, lose some access to things like plug and charge, so be aware that you might lose key features you want to use. The other reason often discussed, though, for people not using telematics is one that we've been hearing a lot of in the news lately. Your car telling tales on you, sending data back to your automaker detailing how it's been driven, how fast it's been driven, when and where it's been driven. And that data sometimes finds its way back to insurance companies. Just a few weeks ago, we heard of stories from both Ford EV and Chevrolet EV drivers worried that their insurance policies had increased off of the back of how their vehicles had been driven, and telematics was the blamed party. But what's super important here is the fact that in most parts of the world, automakers need your explicit permission to share your driving data with your insurance company. It's an opt-in rather than an opt-out process. And look, it's all too easy to get suckered into just clicking through agreements or signing blank pages when you buy a new vehicle or you get a new insurance policy, all without reading that small print. And it's all too easy to turn on new features in your brand new shiny car without truly understanding what they do. Sadly, and I'm not a lawyer, it's always worth actually reading what you're signing before signing it, whether you are signing it in the real world or virtually signing it. Yes, I know, I'm boring. But half of the time I hear of horror stories where someone has discovered that a company or a product is doing something they are unhappy about. Had they made a quick cursory look at the small print, they would have revealed that yes, they were actually signing to agree for something that they now know nothing about. And as a side to my side, the EFF, that's the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and several awesome illegal non-profits are all campaigning to make online agreements less incomprehensible and more easily understood by the average non-legally trained individual. So support them if you can. Finally, to finish this all off, let's talk about what happens if you don't use telematics, have no telematics capability because of an out-of-date modem, or, in the case of some owners, rip out the telematics unit entirely. If your vehicle has no telematics because you've opted to not subscribe to it or you've decided not to connect to it, you shouldn't have any massive issues, although I should note that you may not get over-the-air updates, you may not be able to do plug and charge, and unless your car has Wi-Fi and you connect to a known good Wi-Fi access point once in a while to do a software update, you may have to go to the dealership to get urgent fixes applied. While you might not be bothered with software functionality, turning off telematics and in-car modems also means you'll lose out on the ability to keep an eye on your car and have your automaker notify you if it figures out an issue is pending with your ride. While most of the time that's not a big problem when it comes to EV battery pack health, there's certainly a peace of mind to be had from having your car's automaker reach out and ask you to drop by for a service appointment long before your car stops working. Or worse. Ripping out the telematics, I'm going to be honest, that's a little extreme, a little next level, and it could not only mean that you potentially cause unexpected problems with other computer circuits in the vehicle that are expecting the module, but it could also make your vehicle less valuable when you come to sell it on. Not using the system is usually enough, and if you are truly worried about having some online connection you didn't authorize, pulling the SIM card instead is usually enough. The last bit, telematics if your car doesn't have them or no longer has access to them because the network that it used when new is no longer working. Some automakers, Chevrolet and Nissan are among the culprits here, are slowly rolling back support for older vehicles' telematics systems around the world, and that's frankly frustrating and disappointing. I know for a while, however, Nissan, Tesla and other automakers offered 3G upgrades for customers for a fee, allowing them the ability to upgrade their in-car telematics modem to a system compatible with latest cell phone technology as older towers were turned off. I know this happened because I actually paid for a 3G upgrade for one of our Nissan Leafs back when we owned them. But if you are someone who would rather benefit from telematics you have control over, why not consider joining and supporting the Open Vehicle Monitoring System project? It is an open source project that brings telematics capabilities to older EVs, and in some cases brings an alternative to OEM telematics to the table. As I noted previously, I've had them in a couple of my vehicles over the last decade. We'd love to install the OVMS system in our Chevrolet Bolt EV, but as yet we've not spent the money on the hardware. But let us know if that's something you'd really like to see us do. In short though, telematics and the need for it really does depend on your personal choice, and there's no right or wrong answer. But for what it offers most of the time, I'm personally in the fan of the telematics group, although I'd love to convert my personal fleet to an open source alternative so I know exactly where my data is at all times. What say you? Thanks for joining me today, and if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them below in our Discord chat room, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They are some of the more than 1,500 people that help make this channel possible by funding it through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and making sure we can be 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There are a range of different tiers you can sign up for, from as little as $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, $10.08 a year. A massive welcome to our newest supporters, Ralph Koenig, Mr. Eldritch, Dwayne Adiger, and Corey Singletray. To join our list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your week of fame. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll also find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have an old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at. The address is listed below. And of course, if you're in need of some swag, you'll find our swag store link in the down below as well. This month, we are celebrating Wrangling EV FUD with a fantastic t-shirt design by our in-house artist and animator, Erin. Get yours today by heading to our Redbubble store. We've got some great content coming up, so make sure you're subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. We make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want more, the mighty algorithm thinks you'll like this video, but we also think that this one is well worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving.